Welcome back to this week's Parsha Show. The Parsha Shavua Show is a presentation of the Weiss Entertainment Network. 613 on your dial. This week we have the privilege to read Parshat Va'era. Parshat Va'era is famous. The letters are Vav and Aleph at the beginning of the Parsha. Vav and Aleph is Gematria 7. 7 makos that are found in this week's Parsha. Next week's Parsha is Bo, Bet, and Aleph, which is 3. So 7 makos in this week's Parsha and 3 makos in next week's Parsha. The Parsha opens up with a conversation between Hashem and Moshe. At the end of last week's Parsha, Moshe complained to Hashem that you sent me to Mitzrayim and Paro only made it worse for the Jewish people instead of making it better. Why did you send me? And Hashem said, you're going to see what will happen. So at the beginning of this week's Parsha, Hashem says, Ani Hashem. Rashi quotes that what does it mean, Ani Hashem? What was Hashem saying to Moshe when he said, I am Hashem? He was saying, Ne'eman, that I am loyal, l'shalem sachar tov lamitalchim lifonai, that I am loyal to give reward to those who follow in my way, and of course the opposite is to punish those that don't follow in my way. So Ani Hashem, and throughout the Torah we find that expression Ani Hashem, and it should be understood as Hashem saying that I am loyal to reward and punish according to the situation. The Torah says Va'irah Abraham El Yitzchak Ve'el Yaakov. Hashem says that I appeared to Abraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Bekel Shaddai. Ushmi Hashem lo nodati lehem. Rashi says that Hashem said to Moshe that to the Avos I appeared to them in a certain way, but the way I appear to you is a much higher level. And then Hashem goes on to tell Megama Kimosi Esprisi Tam, I'm going to keep my promise to the Avot to give Bnei Yisrael Eretz Canaan. And he promises that he heard the cries of Bnei Yisrael, and he remembers all of his promises that he promised to give to Bnei Yisrael. Hashem then goes on to tell Moshe that he's going to save the Jewish people, and he uses 4 different expressions. These expressions are commonly known as the Arba Lushonot Shel Geula. Hotseiti, as you see in the Siddur, Vitzalti, I will take them out, I will save them, Vigaalti, I will redeem them, meaning save them, Velakakti, and I will take them as a people. These 4 expressions represent different ideas within Hashem taking us out of Mitzrayim. Votzeti simply means from Mitzrayim directly. Vitzalti is from the slavery. Vigaalti is taking them out of the land. Velakakti is he's going to make accept us as a nation. These 4 expressions, as we see in the picture, the 4 cups, is the reason why the Gemara tells us that we drink 4 cups of wine at the Seder to represent the 4 expressions that Hashem said to Moshe that he will take us out of Mitzrayim. The Parsha continues teaching us the family tree of Levi. The reason why the family tree of Levi is mentioned is because the Torah wants to tell us about where Moshe and Aaron come from, because Moshe and Aaron are going to play the lead role in Yetzias Mitzrayim. We see Amram married Yocheved, had Aaron and Moshe, and of course Miriam, and there was Gershon, there was Kahas, there was Merari. Those are 3 sons of Levi, and the entire picture here. We see Aaron's children. We see Korach, who was a cousin to Moshe, who eventually led a rebellion against Moshe. Elisaphan, who was the head of Shevet Levi, and this is all in the family tree here that we see in this picture. Moving on, Moshe and Aaron come to Paro, and Paro says, "Show me a sign." So Aaron takes the staff, as you can see in the picture over here, and the staff turns into a snake. And Paro laughs at it, and he calls his magicians, and they perform the same act. Now, interesting, and what happens? Aaron swallows theirs. Now, but what does it mean that Aaron swallows theirs? Vayivla mate Aharon es matotam. So the pasuk says that not that Aaron's snake swallowed the snakes of the Egyptians, but actually what happened was that Aaron's staff, after it turned back into a staff, the staff swallowed the sticks of Paro's servants, and that was even a bigger miracle than the snake doing it. Again, as you see in the picture, and that although despite that idea, and that despite that Paro saw that his heart was hardened and he refused to let Bnei Israel out of Mitzrayim. From that point, then begins the Makos. So it's interesting here. You can see it obviously in the picture. We're talking about Makat Dam, the Makkah of blood. So it says that Moshe goes to Paro in the morning. So Paro acted like he was a god, and he would take care of his physical needs at the water in the morning. And it was that spot where Moshe is going to delegitimize Paro as being considered a godlike figure by coming to him at that time. And he tells them that if you don't let Bnei Israel go, he's going to turn all of the waters in Mitzrayim into blood. And not only that, but Hadagah Shebayor, you see the fish in the picture, the fish are also going to die, and all of Eretz Mitzrayim is going to smell. Rashi specifically mentions the idea that the reason why Hashem attacked the Nile River first is because the Nile River was worshipped by the Mitzrim. And Hashem said he wanted to attack the god of the Mitzrim before he attacked the Mitzrim themselves. We all know the Medrash that in order for the Mitzrim to drink water, they had to buy it from Bnei Israel. In fact, we find at the end of the Makkah, they're digging around the Nile River in order to find the water in order for them to drink. Of course, Paro says, he's going to let them go, and of course, as the story goes, once the Makkah goes away, he changes his mind. From that came Makat Svardeya, and again the frogs came, and they were in the rooms, in the bedrooms. As the song goes, frogs here, frogs there, frogs truly everywhere. And that certainly was the story that took place here. That indeed that the frogs were everywhere. One interesting idea. It says that the frogs jumped into the oven even though the oven was hot. The Gemara says it was actually in this week's Daf Yomi, the Gemara in Pesachim. The Gemara says that the frogs did a Kiddush Hashem, that they didn't have to jump into the ovens, but in order to carry out Hashem's will, they were willing to jump into the oven, and that's an important idea of Kiddush Hashem that we always have to look to create Kiddush Hashem. In this case, and even if it means giving up your life, as we've seen so much in our history, people like Rabbi Akiva and other people who died just to preserve the Torah and preserve Hashem's name. So, and of course, once again, after Makat of the frogs, it says they put all the frogs in a pile, and the land of Mitzrayim smelled. So the way they got rid of them is they were in a pile, and eventually they went away. I guess they decayed or eventually went away. From the Makkah of Dam, we come to Makkah of Kinam. Now, Makkah of Kinam is lice. As we see in the picture, the bugs all over the place, and people are uncomfortable. Now, what's important to note about Makkah Kinam, in Makkah Dam and Makkah Tzvardeya, Paro's magicians were able to duplicate the Makkah. When it came to Makkah Kinam, they held up their hands and they said, Etzba Elokimhi. Rashi says that the lice was smaller than the size of a barley, and their magic did not work on something that was smaller than the size of the barley. So when they saw this makkah, they went to Paro and they said, only the power of a god can bring such a makkah. It's not magic anymore, and it must be the hand of Hashem. That's what Elokim. Remember, Elokim means Hashem is in judgment. So they recognized that Hashem was judging them and brought them this makkah, and they begged Paro to let Bnei Israel go, but of course, Paro refused. From Canaan, we move to Arov. Of course, in the Arov, you see all the wild animals. The Mitzrim were terrorized by the wild animals. One interesting thing in Makkah Arov, at the end of the Makkah, the animals do not die. Unlike by the Sfardim, the animals run away. Now, why is it they don't die? So Rashi says that because if they would have died, then the Mitzvah would have benefited from their skins and all the different things that animals give. So they ran away. So not only was there a makkah, but the Mitzvah were not able to benefit from the skins of the animal, and therefore it was a makkah in the fullest extent of the word. From Aro, we go to Dever. So Dever was a particularly harsh punishment to the Mitzrim because it attacked their livestock, their animals. The Mitzrim were not, whatever they owned was attacked. All the animals died in this makkah. It's important to note for a later makkah that only the animals that were in the field died. Any animal that was in a house, that was in a barn, those animals did not die. But that was Makat Dever. Now the Mitzrim were impoverished; they were made poor by the loss of their animals and their possession. Um, and from Makat Dever, we go to Makat Shchin. Because Shchin was boils. The boils affected both people and animals. It was very painful. It says that the Khartoumim, the Paro's magicians, couldn't stand in front of Moshe because of the boils. It was a particularly challenging thing, and it was very painful for the Mitzrim. And nonetheless, once again, Paro's heart hardened, and he did not let them go. The last makkah of the parsha was Barad. So Barad was particularly a harsh makkah. Now, once again, it says that Barad killed anything that was in the field, the animals or anything that was in the field. In fact, Moshe comes and warns the Mitzvim to remove everything from the field, because anything that's going to be in the field was going to be destroyed. Barad was particularly a miracle because it was ice and fire together, and the fire and the ice didn't cancel out each other. So it was a miracle that it came in the first place, and it was a miracle that the fire and the ice was able to mix together, and they brought terror upon the Mitzvah. Again, at the end of the Makkah, Paro says that that I am sinful, and I've done the wrong thing, but nonetheless, and he asks Moshe to daven, and says Moshe walks out of the city and he davens, and at the end, of course, Paro hardens his heart and does not let Bnei Yisrael go. And that's the story of Makkah Bara. Okay, we're going to stop here. Thank you for listening to this week's Parsha show. Again, the first 7 Makkos are in this week's Parsha, and the last 3 are in next week's Parsha. Hint to do, as I said at the beginning, by the Gematria Vov Aleph of Va'era and Beis Aleph of Parshat Bo. I think next week's show will be on vacation, so we'll not have a show next week. Maybe in another year, if you're listening to this, not this year, we'll have the show for Parshat Bo. Take care, everybody, and have a great Shabbos.